So, you and your best friend squad want to play some Dungeons and Dragons, and then you realize you're the buffoon who doesn't know how to make a D&D character. Well, I'm going to help you. I'm going to make it nice and smooth, and we're going to make this easy and simple. You will need two things: a player's handbook, or a PDF of the player's handbook, and a form-fillable character sheet, or an actual pencil and paper character sheet. Those are the two main things you'll need. There are other sources you can use, such as Xanthar's Guide to Everything. Xanthar's Guide to Everything, it has some extra character class options, and there are plenty of other books, but those are not necessary, so we'll not be using those today. So, you have your player's handbook, and you have your character sheet. Let's talk about briefly which pages you will need. So, looking at the table of contents here on page 2, I think, 2 or 3, you can see there's a lot in this book, right? These are the full rules of how to play the game. For making our characters, we're only going to need a couple of very specific parts. We'll need, and I'm going to be popping these up on screen just to make sure it's nice and big. You'll need the pages about classes, which start at page 45, 46. You will need the chapter about races, chapter 2, which is page 17 and 18. You'll need backgrounds, which is sort of like personality traits and things, and that begins on 121 and 122. And then you'll need to start working on your stats, your ability scores, which starts in the first chapter around 11 or 12, maybe 14. And then equipment, which is around 144, 143. If you need spells, you will also need to go to page 207 to see the spell lists. I won't be using spells for this example just to keep it nice and short and sweet, but if you were going to use them, that's where you would go. Okay? Let's get started. Okay, so I'm on page 45, 46 here. This is classes. Now, your class in Dungeons & Dragons, you know, is the biggest deal. It determines how you are going to play the game compared to other people. So, I'm going to look at these classes here, and there's so many, and they've all got nice little descriptions. They've got which ability score is most important to them, and some of their proficiencies. I know right now that I'm going to be a fighter, because I would love to be a master of martial combat, skilled with a variety of weapons and armor. So, that's what I'm going to choose. So I need to just go scrolling down past Barbarian, past Bard. I just gotta keep going down until I get to Fighter. Okay, I have found it. Here is Fighters. So I can see they've got nice little descriptions that kind of tell you what the class is like, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, that kind of thing. Then they give you this right here. This The Fighter table, each class has one of these, and it tells you what you unlock at each of those levels. This is extremely helpful, so that way you don't go and record all of these different abilities, even though you're only playing a level 1 character. So I know at first level, I will have the fighting style feature and the second wind feature. If I see action surge, I know I've gone too far. Then there's a nice little paragraph here where it can tell you how to create your fighter. And this is great because it tells you, it starts asking you questions, how to think about your character. But we're not here for that shit right now. We're here just to make the character sheet. So I'll begin first off looking at class features. This is where we'll actually find the different things that we need to make our character. To begin with, I'm going to go back to my character sheet. And I know already that we are a fighter. Oop. Fighter, level 1. So I'll put Fighter 1. And my name is Alec. Okay. Looking at our character sheet here, or at the player's handbook here, we can see it talks about hit points. Now this looks kind of confusing. Hit dice are what we use to recover hit points. Hit points at first level is how much hit points you actually have, and then hit points at higher level is how much hit points you gain once you level up. We're level 1, so we're just going to be using this part here. Now, I don't know my Constitution modifier yet, because I'm saving the stat part for later. So, for right now, I'm just going to put 10 plus Con. I know it's not an exact number, but I will remember to come back to that later. Hit dice, we saw we have 1d10. Boom. First part is done for us. I'll scroll down so that way we're keeping it clean here. Okay, next we have some proficiencies, skills, and equipment. Every single class will get some arrangement of these things, okay? Proficiencies. We know we are proficient with all armor, all shields. We're also proficient with simple weapons and martial weapons, aka all weapons. So, I'll go down to my sheet. Down here in other proficiencies and languages, I'll write all armor, shields, all weapons. I chose the easy one this time. Some classes are only proficient with certain weapons or certain types of armor. Make sure you check those because there are disadvantages listed in the equipment section of the book that'll tell you if you can or can't do some things. Alright, tools, none. Saving throws, strength and constitution. We go back to our sheet. I'm going to just do the little checkbox for strength and the checkbox for constitution. Skills. We get to choose 2 from the following skills. Each class will get to choose a certain amount, some more, like rogues and bards, and some less, like fighters. Acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, and so on and so on. I already know I'm going to choose survival, and I'm going to choose animal handling, because I like to imagine our fighter here is an outdoorsman. Those sound interesting to me. So I'll just check the box on animal handling, and check the box on survival. Okay. Equipment. Now, you can optionally forego this equipment section, and you could just have a set amount of gold, which either your dungeon master could determine, or you could look, there's a section in the equipment section that tells you how much gold you could start with. I'm just going to use this because it's easy, and these recommended equipment pieces are very good. So I'll go down the list step by step. So first step, chainmail or leather armor. I will go with chainmail. I'm going to go with leather armor and longbow, because my man is more of a huntsman. So down here in equipment, I will write leather armor, longbow. And I can see also says 20 arrows. Some dungeon masters will have you track how many arrows, so I will write it down, but not all of them will. Some of them will just say you're out of arrows after a while, or you need to buy more, or something. Okay, martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons. Now, we will get to equipment later. So for right now, I'm just going to write right here 2 martial weapons. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll make sure to revisit that section later. A light crossbow or 2 hand axes. We're going to go with 2 hand axes. Actually, I'm going to change this 2 martial weapons. I've kind of rethought it, and I think we need at least a shield for some defense. Okay, so we'll do 1 martial weapon and a shield. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, now we choose a Dungeoneer's pack or Explorer's pack. Again, we'll cover this in the equipment section, so for right now, I'll just put Dungeon versus Explorer packs. So we'll know to come back to that later. Okay? Alright. We get our first feature. Each class will get different features, and most of them get at least something at level 1. So for us, it is a fighting style. Fighting style is a cool way that fighters can customize themselves to make them a little bit more like themselves. We've got choices between archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, protection, or 2-weapon fighting. Now, I know we're sort of like a huntsman, but I don't think our guy is like an archer, necessarily. So I think we're going to go with defense. I think... Oh, actually, we could do 2-weapon fighting. That might be interesting. I'm going to go with defense. I think because we're wearing leather armor, we're going to need the extra defense there. So I'll go over here to features and traits. Now, I personally like to go like this. I like to put fighter at the top because then I know where it splits up. This might be hard once you get a lot of features going. But for right now, it'll work for me. So I'll put that and I'll say, okay, I have fighting, style, defense. And then I will just sort of do this. Gain 1 armor class, AC. Let me check back at the details. Sometimes you gotta flip and flop. While you're wearing armor. Okay. While armored. So notice I didn't type it word for word, but I understand the basic of it. I still have what the intention is and what it does. If you have a very complicated ability, you may need to record more information. I chose an easy one just so you can see the process of creating a character. So we've got our fighting style. Done. We also get Second Wind as a first level ability. You have a limited well of stamina. You can essentially heal yourself for 1d10 plus your fighter level. Once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest. Okay, so we know that we can heal once on our turn. It's a bonus action. We heal ourselves a certain amount by this amount, and we know we have to finish a short or long rest. So we'll go here. Second wind. And I'm going to type the rest out, and I will see you at that point. Okay, so second wind is a bonus action. I heal 1d10, or heal, I could write heal self. That might be a little bit more helpful. Okay, so second wind is a bonus action. That's the cost to use it. I always put that part first, so I know exactly what I can and can't do on my turn. It heals myself, because if I just said heal, it could be anybody. Heal self, 1d10 plus level. And I know it's fighter level, but I'm just going to be a pure fighter, so it won't matter to me. Hit points, short rest. I didn't write long rest, because a long rest counts as a short rest. So I don't need to worry about that. So I just put short rest. Don't need to add more text than I need. Okay, so that is it for fighters right now. If we were at higher levels, we would have more features like Action Surge. And then maybe at third level, we would have to choose a martial archetype. And then we would gain certain features there. And again, you're just doing the same exact thing. You are just writing stuff down in the ability section or the features section. Okay, next we're going to go jump to races. Okay, we are on the race section now. As you know, races are a pretty big part of your character. They determine what essentially species you are, and they'll determine how other people in the world interact with you and kind of what you're good at and what maybe special abilities you have. Here you'll see racial traits. This is page 18, 17, by the way. You'll see each race gets you some ability score increases. It'll tell you how old they can be. It'll tell you their relative alignment. It'll tell you how big they are. It'll tell you their speed, which is usually 30 feet per round. Languages, sub-races, and so on, right? There are certain features you get. So we're going to be looking for these things in our races. Now, I have already decided that my fighter, after kind of looking through these, I think my fighter is going to be let's do a halfling. I think it'd be really interesting to have a halfling because I think it sort of circumvents normal constructions of what makes someone a fighter. Because usually a fighter you go with someone with high strength. Because remember, each of these do get a certain bonus. But I'm going to choose halfling. So they get a couple little descriptions here. It's really nice, okay, because these tell you sort of what the race is like, and essentially halflings are hobbits, but we can't say that here. Finally, we get down to the good stuff. We've got halfling names. They have recommendations. You don't have to use these, but they can be a great source of inspiration if you can't think of a name that isn't a meme. But now we get to halfling traits. This is where we really want to be. We start off with ability score increase. Your dexterity score increases by 2. Okay. We don't have our stats just yet, so I'm just going to put right here a +2. If I was writing this on paper, I would maybe write it in the margin over here. This will be changing. This is just a temporary recording, okay? Age, okay, we can see their age. Not important for us for our character sheet right now. If you wanted to start adding these things, you could write on the back of your character sheet. There are versions of this character sheet that have more room on the back where you could record stuff, or you could put it maybe here in other languages and proficiencies, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. So age, we know how old they can be, we know their alignment. Now, there is a spot for alignment, so I will decide that my character, looking at the halflings, it says most of them are kind and good-hearted, and they lean on community, and they're very orderly. So I'm going to change that a little bit. I think he'll be neutral, good. So NG, neutral, good. I don't think he's as lawful. I think he's a little bit more rogue than the rest. Okay, size again would matter for us to know, but not something we need to record right now. Speed is important. 25 feet. So we know their speed is 25. That means we can move 25 feet per round, and you could write, FT if you want, but it doesn't fit for me in this box, so I'm just going to write 25. It's assumed that everybody uses feet. Sorry, those of you that use metric, I apologize greatly that we've done this to you. Okay, lucky. Lucky is this feature. This is something that isn't just a stat. This is a feature. So is brave, and so is halfling nimbleness. So we have a couple of features here. We're going to be recording these in our features section. So lucky, when you roll a 1 for the attack roll or ability check or saving throw, you can re-roll it. You must use a new roll. We've got brave, we've got halfling nimbleness. So I'm going to take these and just record them in the features section over here. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've recorded those 3 halfling features. Now, I like to make sure I abbreviate because it allows me to make more room. Some people don't like doing that, and you can certainly try to record it smaller. On this PDF version, I think I can't make it any smaller, so I'm just going to stick with this for now. I've got lucky. I can re-roll a 1 on a 1d20, but I must use the new result. Brave, I have advantage, ADV, advantage, versus frightened. Now that's a very, very shortened version of saying you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. If it helps you, you could write advantage versus ST, saving throw, frightened, or you could write saving throw. I don't know, it's up to you. I'm trying to abbreviate though. Halfling nimbleness can move through larger creature spaces. Okay, so we have our halfling features there. Let's continue on. Languages. You can speak, read, and write common and halfling. And they tell you sort of about halfling as a language. So I'll go back over to my sheet. Down in proficiencies, I'll write common halfling. You may also gain others based on your class. We did not, so that's okay. But other ones may add, and certain races will allow you to choose extra ones. Anyway, last thing we need to do is choose a sub-race. So we need to choose between Lightfoot and Stout. Lightfoot are a little bit more nimble, Stout are a little bit more hardy. I think because we're a fighter, I think Stout sort of fits that very well. So we'll be choosing Stout. So I will go on my character sheet up at the top. Now that we have the full race, I'll write Stout Halfling. Okay. Then looking back down here, Stout Halfling. We get a increase of Constitution by 1, and we have advantage on saving throws against poison and resist poison damage. Okay, those are 2 different things, so we need to make sure we record both of those. Okay, so I've ooh, did I spell resilience wrong? Okay, so I've recorded stout resilience, advantage versus poison, resist poison damage. Again, abbreviated. Over here, I'll put the +1 for constitution, so that way I know. Okay, I've got an extra constitution point. And that is races. That is it. Like, we did our race. We're doing great. Let's keep moving. The next step on our character sheet is backgrounds. We need to figure out who was our character before they started going on this adventure. So we need to flip to page 122 or 121. All right, we're on personality and background. Now this is a lot of information that is really important for your character, but not important for our character sheet. Like, how tall are they? How much do they weigh? Alignment, things like this. It tells you all about these important things, languages and all the different languages, personality traits, ideals, bonds. We're going to skip all that. We need to go to the actual backgrounds section, and this begins on page 125, 126. These actual backgrounds will give you features and give you languages and give you extra equipment. So we need to make sure that we pick a good one. This is, again, who is your character before they're on an adventure? What sort of job did they have? What did they do with their time? There are things like acolytes, soldiers, charlatans, and so on and so on. Criminals. There's a lot of things here. I'm going to stick... I'm actually going to go a little bit off book. Normally, I might choose, like, Outlander. Outlander is made for this sort of thing, being this sort of, like, ranger fighter that we're going for. But I'm actually going to go guild artisan. I think it'd be interesting if our guy was maybe a shopkeeper, and then he decided that, that life was too mundane, too boring. Or he was working at a shop. Maybe he was a carpenter. And you can see here they have different guild businesses, and we'll talk about that in a second. So we are guild artisan. Let's record that on our sheet. Guild artisan. We can see skill proficiencies, insight and persuasion, and we get a tool proficiency and a language of our choice. For those languages, I could scroll up back to the language section, but I know them myself by heart, and I know the artisan tools relatively as well. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to, for languages, I'm going to add Dwarven. Because as a stout halfling, maybe we live near a group of dwarves, and so I became proficient with Dwarven because I needed to do a lot of business with them. I will also record that I have tool proficiency with carpenter tools. Now this is something that you probably don't need to record because it probably won't come up, but it might, so I'm going to record it. And then I remember I get insight and persuasion skill proficiencies. Skill proficiencies are here, so I'll put insight and I'll put persuasion. All right. Then we get some equipment. Set of artisan's tools. We're going to take carpenter tools, of course. A letter of introduction from your guild. Traveler's clothes. And a pouch containing 15 gold pieces. So we'll go down here to my sheet will scroll properly. We'll go down here and we'll put artisan, or we'll just put carpenter tools. Carpenter tools. We know we have some common clothes. We have a letter from Carpenter Guild, I suppose. And we have 15 gold pieces. Your money is recorded here. The one you'll be using the most is gold pieces, because most things in Dungeons & Dragons rely on gold pieces, but we also have copper, silver, and platinum. For right now, we'll just be using gold pieces. Okay, those are all the different things from that. Now we get or we can choose, so again, we chose which guild business, but there's a lot of things in here that give you extra ideas. But now we have an actual feature here. See, feature, important. Guild membership. Reading through this paragraph, which I'm not going to read on here, the guild membership essentially allows us some extra features. If we find carpenters, they will give us food and lodging. If we find a guild hall, we can meet with them and potentially find some allies and some people to work for. It means we could also do some carpentry and get paid for it if we have some downtime. But This one comes actually with a payment. We have to pay 5 gold per month to the guild. We have to somehow mail that or pay that. We could maybe pay in advance or something as well. If I was a dungeon master, I might be nice and say, you have this month taken care of, so you don't have to worry about that. So, down in features, I'll go over here, and I'll write guild artisan. And then I'm going to do a brief summary of those, super brief, because that is a lot of stuff. Okay, this is a super pared down version, but I know I'm a guild member. I've got food and lodging, patrons and allies in guilds. I must pay 5 gold per month, or 5 GP, gold pieces, per month. That is obviously very trimmed down. That is very trimmed down compared to the original description, but again, we can only record so much on the character sheet. Then they have other things like personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws that you could use if you wanted to, and they've got potential variants, like, oh, I'm a guild merchant or something. But for now, this is fine. Okay, next step, we're going to finally tackle stats. This is on page 13 and 14. These are ability score modifiers. This page sort of tells you how to get them and what they mean and do. There are 3 main ways, and I'll pop these up on screen hopefully. There are 3 main ways. One, you could use the standard array. The second one is you could use a point buy system. And the third one is you can roll for stats. Standard array is nice because you receive just a very flat amount of stats and everybody's very balanced. I like to do this for beginning players. You get to choose where they go, of course. So you get a 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Then there is point buy. Point buy is the idea that you have 27 points to spend and you can spend them on ability scores with everything starting at 8. And the idea here is that you can customize your stats a bit more. At maximum, you could have 15, 15, 15, 8, 8, 8. And they have a little table down here that shows the cost of those. I personally don't use point buy much, but it is very popular in the community. Then there is rolling for stats, which I'll have to pop up on screen because they do not really talk about it in here. Rolling for stats, you roll, most people go by 4d6, drop the lowest, meaning you roll 4 6-sided dice, and then you drop the lowest one. So if I got a 4, a 3, and a 3, and a 1, I would drop the 1. So I take 4, 3, 3, add those together, 10. That is my ability score. You do that 6 times, there's your stats. So for now, I'm going to be using the standard array because it is nice and easy. So looking at my stats over here, we know from reading the fire section that strength is important. So I might put 15 in strength. Dexterity is also important to me though. So I'm going to put my 14 in dexterity. But I remember I have, and I might even record the ones I've done like up here in a corner. So I know I've used my 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. I might write these like in a margin or something, just so I can remember which ones I've used. So I've used my 15, and now I'm about to use my 14. Now, I get a +2 to dexterity because I am a halfling, so I'll remove that and add it to the 14, so it's now 16. Constitution, I'm also going to make good, so we're going to be using the 13. With this +1, it becomes a 14. Now, I have 12, 10, and 8. I should decide what my character's not good at. What are they not very good at? I think my character is not going to be the most wise. His wisdom is not there. Actually, we're kind of outdoorsy. I'm going to say charisma. He's not the best when it comes to talking to other people. So I'll put in charisma. I'll put 12 in wisdom and 10 in intelligence. Now I can remove these. Okay, so we have the ability scores. These numbers do not really matter that much. They do in that they determine the actually important part, which is ability score modifiers. The modifiers are what you actually add or subtract to your dice rolls. These are the actually important numbers. So that's why I record them in the big spot. Some people do this reverse. I think that's silly. Okay. But if you'd like to do it that way, you like to do it that way. Okay. Ability score modifiers. So we can see here that a 10 or 11 is 0. We know an 8 or a 9 is -1. And it goes up on even numbers. So every even number you get to will be an extra 1. So let's go. We'll start with charisma, -1. Okay. Intelligence we know is 0. I have no 11s here, so 12 is a +1, which you could just do a 1 or a +1. I'm just going to do a 1 for right now. Constitution we know is a +2. 15 is not up to the next even number, so that's still a 2. And then dexterity is a 3. Okay, so we know our character is fast, they're strong, they're hardy, and they're not very good at talking to people. Okay, now we know our constitution modifier for this part over here. So we can go to our hit points, and we can say, okay, we have 10 plus 2 for a total of 12 to start with. We also know our initiative. Our initiative is just our dexterity modifier, and there may be some extra bonuses for certain classes, like monks, and rogues, and rangers, and barbarians. Maybe. Okay, maybe. We also know our armor class, but we'll get to that once we get to the equipment section. Our proficiency bonus is always 2 to start with, level 1. It will go up in the class section, and we saw that back in the class section. I forgot to record it. I apologize. Okay, now we can start doing our skills. I'm going to be filling these out off camera, and then we'll be back in a moment. All I'm doing, though, is looking at this stat, and then if there is a dot, I am adding my proficiency bonus. That's it. Okay, so I've recorded my different skills here, and you can see how much bonuses I get for them. You'll notice, for example, persuasion. Normally I have a -1 in charisma, but because my guy is a guild artisan, he is trained in persuasion. He knows how to do it. So that makes him slightly better than he would normally be. Otherwise, he's not very good at talking to people. He's really just good at trying to sell them something, persuade them. Okay, those are our skills and stats. That's it for skills and stats. Now, we'll get to equipment. Okay, equipment is in Chapter 5. It starts on 144, 143, whatever. Equipment here, you can see I've got some interesting things. They tell you like how much gold pieces are worth compared to copper, and they tell you how much gold you could start with each class instead of getting the default. But we're going to skip some of this. We're going to go down to the armor section. So with armor and shields, they tell you what each of them looks like, and they tell you what certain bonuses and things are in the table, but we're actually going to skip that and go straight to this table. Here in this table, we can see the different classifications of armor. We can see what they would cost by default. Whoa, plate armor, whoa. Armor class, we can see how much armor class they give. Some of them have specific formulas. Light and medium armor relies on dexterity, how nimble you are, okay, because you can move easier. But medium armors, because they're still a little bit bulky, you can only benefit up to 2 from that. So like with mine, I have a +3, only 2 of that would matter for these. Then you have strength, if it's a requirement. Usually the bigger, heavier armors will require strength. And then stealth. Some of them are very noisy, and so you may have disadvantage on stealth checks. Need to remember that, okay? And then weight. If you track weight, here they are. Okay, so we know we have leather armor. It is 11 plus dexterity modifier. There are no strength or stealth interactions. So 11 plus dexterity. So we'll go back here. We know it is 11 plus dexterity, which is 14. Now, we also have a shield. Shields provide an extra +2. So what I will do is I'll put a slash, and I'll put 16. Now, hopefully it will resize it. It doesn't resize it. Okay, that's fine. I will actually just write, I'm just going to write 16. Okay? I'll remember that I have a shield. If you are doing this on paper, I would write 14/16. It makes it a little bit easier, but I can't do that here. All right, cool. Let's get to weapons. Okay, weapons begin just a little bit below that. You can see they talk about proficiencies. They talk about weapon properties. There are some interesting ones here. The most important probably to know is like range, reach, and finesse. Finesse is a big one that a lot of people, early players, mix up. Finesse weapons can use strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls, but you must use the same modifier for both of those rolls. That is very important to know. Reach allows you to add 5 feet to the distance you can attack people with. That's very important as well. And then there are certain ones like, two-handed, you have to have 2 hands. Versatile, you can use 1 hand or 2 hands, and so on and so on. You can read this on your own time. Let's get to these weapons here. We've got a nice big table. Now, if I go back and look at my equipment, I know I get to choose 1 extra martial weapon. So, I need sort of a good hand weapon. Something probably in the martial weapons here, not in the simple weapons. Simple weapons are like what any peasant could probably just pick up and grab, whereas martial weapons are actually made to like really kill people and do good at it. Like these are the professional weapons versus this sort of just almost makeshift weaponry. Not necessarily, can still be very nice. You got very nice core staff, but anyway. Looking at these here, I'm looking for ones that are potentially have finesse, because then I can use my dexterity instead of my strength, which my guy is a little bit more nimble than he is strong. So, or is he? Yes, he's more nimble than strong. So, I will be going with a rapier, because this is a 1d8 finesse weapon. I like that. That sounds good to me. I could go with a scimitar as well, but I think I'll go with this rapier. So, I will change my martial weapon to rapier. And a rapier is like a fencing sword. Okay, if you don't know what that is. Alright, so now I need to record my weapons and their stats here in attacks and spellcasting. If you know you're not going to use it all, you could just sell it, I guess, but I'm going to use it. Scimitar. Or sorry, rapier. I went with the rapier, not the scimitar. Okay. Then I have a longbow. Hopefully that, yes, thank you. And then hand axes. I'm just going to write hand axe. I know I have 2 of them, but I'm just going to write 1 of them for now. Okay, now the attack bonus is going to depend on the type of weapon. So if I go back here, I see that yes, rapiers have finesse, so I can use strength or dexterity. Hand axes up here are light and thrown. They do not say finesse, so I cannot use dexterity. I have to use strength for them. Okay? Just because it has range doesn't mean it can be used with dexterity. I'm pretty sure. Yes, okay, yes. Okay, so the numbers that we're looking for here is their damage. Okay, and then maybe any other pertinent information. So hand axes are 1d6. That's actually really good. Rapiers are a 1d8. And a longbow are a 1d8. Okay, so let's start with those. So rapier is 1d8. Longbow, 1d8. Hand axe, 1d6. Now, the attack bonus, we're going to look at the relevant stats, which is always strength or dexterity, and we're going to add our proficiency, because we are proficient in all weapons. So, we'll go with a +5 for rapier, because we're going to use dexterity. We'll get a +5 for longbow, and we'll get a +4 for hand axe, because it is strength. This attack bonus is how easy it is for you to hit your target. It's like an accuracy bonus, okay? So when you roll the d20 to try to hit someone, you'll add 5 if you're using my rapier, or 4 if I'm using my hand axes. Then we're going to add to the damage over here. And we know that the damage is going to be the same as whatever stat we use. So I'll get an extra 3 damage on the rapier. I'll get an extra 3 damage on the longbow. And I'll get an extra 2 damage on the hand axes. One thing I just remembered that I need to do is I forgot I chose fighting style. I gain 1 defense. I gain 1 armor class while armored. So I need to bump this up to 17. So for wearing leather armor, we are pretty tanky. But it's because we have that shield. But remember, if I'm using my longbow, which if I go down to longbow is heavy two-handed, I cannot use my shield if I'm using my longbow. And if I use both my hand axes in both hands, I don't get my shield. So my armor class will go down to 15 instead of 17. Then I would record my ranges and things, but this spreadsheet doesn't offer me a lot of room, so I will not be writing them. But just know that when you use a ranged weapon, it's very helpful to write down the ranges. And the ranges on here, you can read in the range section what they mean, because this video is getting long. Okay, so that is actually all I need for my character. Now, I know that actually took a little bit. I think this recording is at about 40 minutes right now, but a lot of that is because I'm explaining things. If it's just me making it, I can make a character in like, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but that's also because it's a fighter. It's super easy. Finally, I need a character name. I will name my character, let's go to the halfling names, actually. Okay, looking at the halfling names, I'm going to use Cade. Yeah, Cade. And then I need a family name. Cade Thorngage. Oh yeah, that's a sick name. Cade Thorngage. Hell yeah. Alright. Cade Thorngage. This is it. This is it, though. This is all I need when it comes to actually recording things on my character sheet. Again, you could do personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. You could do a little bit more on the weapon type things, but this is it. I'm actually... passive wisdom. Passive perception is just 10 plus your perception, so 11. But this is it. This is all I need. I am ready to play Dungeons & Dragons using this character sheet. Okay? Now, one last thing, because I know some of you will choose spellcasters. Spells are located way towards the end of the book, around page like 200. Okay, I went a little bit too far. Okay, one last thing. Since I know some of you will choose spellcasters, I almost always play spellcasters because I love them. You'll need to go down chapter 10, spellcasting, which is page 201, 202. The first few pages teach you how to use spells and some of the rules around them. Please make sure you read those, especially on concentration. I'm not going to talk about them because that's not what this video is about. But then you'll come to chapter 11, which is right after that, and that is spell lists. So this will have all the lists of spells. Make sure you read your class section so you know what level of spells you can choose and how many and how you learn them. But these are the lists right here. So you've got bard spells, clerics, druids, paladins, and so on, all the way down to the massive wizard section. And then after that, they list these spell descriptions. And again, if I was recording these on my character sheet, I might put them on the back or on a secondary page. There are versions of this character sheet that have a second page for spells. Make sure you write down the important things like the name, casting time, range, duration, components, and then what they do, especially the range, how much damage, any specific things, okay? You need to know your spells if you're a spellcaster, or do your best at least. Okay, that is it though. Thank you very much. I know this was a bit of a long one. I plan on having a fast version of this, so if this is too long, you can go ahead and watch that. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Really quick, this is Alec from the future. I finished recording this video and ended up being a lot longer than I wanted, even once I cut down the parts where I'm typing stuff. I am going to be making a simple, fast version of this, so if you don't want to do the super long video, go check that out instead. And that'll be just what you need to do. It'll be very fast and very quick.